Hello, hello. My name is Luke. I'll be hosting Men at Work today. Thanks for coming in and joining us. It is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2024. Hope everyone out there is being safe and enjoying the day with friends and family. So, for those that don't know, Men at Work is a Christian men's group focused on putting God first in all areas of our lives, with particular focus on four pillars of business stewardship, accountability, fellowship, and prayer. If there's anything we can do to help you form a small group and provide, connections to Christians in your area, um, venue space to host a group, or even content for your group, please contact me at menatworkministry@gmail.com. Well, thank you for taking the time to join me this morning. As I do Bible study in my own life, I generally try to look at, a particular season of life and find scripture that may speak into that, and then find some scripture from multiple sources in the Bible and really kind of look at the wider context of that scripture and, draw parallels and then ultimately see how it could apply to my life in the year 2024. So this morning I've been reading in the book of Daniel, and I want to read the majority of chapter 1, Daniel chapter 1, relate it to a common, occurrence that we see in our lives as adults in the professional setting. And it may, even on a personal side, just some changing dynamics. So it could be you're changing jobs, you have a new boss, maybe your company has been acquired, or you just have a new person coming into your life, and it's going to change the balance of your life, and yet you got to find a path forward. So, with that, I'm going to start in Daniel chapter 1, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the vessels of the house of God, and he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasury of his God. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel, including some of the royal family and of the nobles, youths in whom was no defect, who were good looking, showing intelligence in every branch of wisdom, endowed with understanding, discerning knowledge, and who had the ability for serving in the king's court. And he ordered him, referring to Ashpenaz, to teach them the literature and the language of the Chaldeans. The king appointed for them a daily ration of the king's choice food, and from the wine which he drank, and appointed that they should be educated 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter the king's personal service. Now among them, from the sons of Judah, were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Then the commander of the officials assigned new names to them, and to Daniel he assigned the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah Shadrach, to Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah Abednego. But Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food or with the wine which he drank. So he sought permission. I want you to remember that. He sought permission from the commander of the officials that he might not defile himself. Now God granted, point 2, God granted Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the commander of the officials. And the commander of the officials said to Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking more haggard than the youths who are your own age? Then you would make me forfeit my head to the king. Stakes are pretty high for Ashpenaz. But Daniel said to the overseer, whom the commander of the officials had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days, and let us be given some vegetables to eat, and water to drink. Then let our appearance be observed in your presence, and the appearance of the youths who are eating the king's choice food, and deal with your servants according to what you see." So he listened to them in this matter and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, their appearance seemed better. They were fatter than all the youths who had been eating the king's choice food. So the overseer continued to withhold their choice food and the wine, and they were to drink, and the wine they were to drink, and kept giving them vegetables. Just in case you're wondering out there what version of the Bible that I read, it's the New American Standard, and it's this Ryrie study Bible that has actually great commentary and notes. So just a sidebar there. I do try to, on my iPhone Bible app, kind of compare different versions of the Bible, but this has been a great study Bible for me, and it was a wonderful gift from my father-in-law. Okay, so let's look at Daniel, and as they become to know Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they've been removed from their homeland, going to live in a new place in Babylon, and have been appointed to this special service for the king. So they are very much in a new environment with new people, expected to adopt new customs, down to their new name. You would think someone in this situation could be bitter, resentful, angry, and refuse to submit or participate in this service that they've been appointed to. But I want you to look at the three items that I pointed out through the text. Number one, Daniel sought permission. He sought permission to not defile himself and to have a diet that was fitting with his beliefs and not contrary to the Jewish customs and traditions. So number one, he didn't refuse, he sought permission. Number two, God granted. So God granted Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the commander of the officials. So it wasn't that Daniel himself was so convincing. It wasn't so that Daniel himself charmed or won, matched wits and won out over the commander. It says God granted favor. And then number three, Daniel allowed the results to govern future action. It results to govern the outcome, as opposed to him trying to, in himself, influence or dictate the future. Now, later in Daniel, you will read that Daniel did defy direct orders of the king in continuing to pray to God with the same cadence that he did every day. But in this case, first he sought permission, then God granted, and then finally they let the results govern, and it turned out the results were far better than the alternative. So when we're working for a company or a boss, number one, we need to be respectful. That person's in their position for a reason, and as long as they're not asking us to do anything contrary to our beliefs or what God expects of us, we need to have a level of respect for that person of authority. You'll recall, if you watched some of my previous videos, that semi-recently at work I was offered a $5,000 cash bribe, which I immediately declined with prejudice and reported to my bosses. So there wasn't any chance of there becoming a misunderstanding or me being in any way compromised by my morals or my obligation to my employer with the highest of ethical policies. So at this point, I want to kind of look at some New Testament scripture that may support those three items, is having respect for the authorities, therefore seeking permission, allowing God to grant favor, and letting the results govern. So next I want to go and read what Paul said in his letter to the Ephesians. This is Ephesians chapter 5, verses 5 through 9. Slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling in the sincerity of your heart as to Christ. Not by way of eye service, as men pleasers, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. With good will render service as to the Lord, not to men, knowing that whatever good thing each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. And masters do the same thing to them, and give up threatening, knowing that both their master and yours in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. So here again, Paul saying, whether you're slave, employee, a servant, or anywhere in between, we are to be obedient to those in authority over us. Flipping over to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 18. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and gentle, but also to those who are unreasonable. We can all be good to a boss or someone in authority that treats us well. How about those times when you're not being treated fairly or well, and we're to be obedient anyway, and that finds favor with God as we continue in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 19. For this finds favor, if for the sake of conscience towards God a person bears up under sorrows when suffering unjustly. For what credit is there if when you sin and are harshly treated, you endure it with patience? But if when you do what is right and suffer for it, But if when you do what is right and suffer for it, you patiently endure it, this finds favor with God. I think we all want to find favor with God. Finally, I wanted to read straight from Jesus' mouth. So Luke, and I know the same quotation is in Matthew as well, but Luke chapter 20, 25, and he said to them, meaning Jesus, then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the thing that are God's. So even Jesus, when it came down to paying taxes or anything like that, while he is the Son of God on this earth, continued to be submissive and respectful of the earthly authorities over him. Let's take a look at John chapter 12, because Jesus all but confirms that we are going to go through trials and tribulations and have hard times, and knowing that part of that is the expectation that we're submissive to positions of authority and we're not always going to be treated well. But that's not really the point. If we look at John chapter 12, verse 25, Jesus says, he who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. We're not supposed to be here living some comfortable, everything goes our way kind of lives. We are going to be tested, and we are going to have trouble. And even in John 16, chapter 3, Jesus told the disciples, these things I have spoken to you, so that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take courage, I have overcome the world. Now, I even wrote in my Bible right here, Jesus rocks. I can't think of another that is this, bold and speaking in strong words. I mean, we're supposed to hate our lives in this world, and we're supposed to understand that we will face trouble in this world. But if we have truly given our lives over to Christ, we can take heart because he has overcome the world. So, again, kind of taking this to a more personalized level, sometimes, we're put in positions in this life where things aren't going our way. And again, whether, going back to the story of Daniel, where we're in a new situation and expected to be of value to, again, maybe it's a new employer, a new boss, or whatever the dynamic is. We are supposed to be creating value for that individual that may look differently than what we've done in the past. And I'm not suggesting that we are passive. I think it is okay, as Daniel did, to be respectful and maybe challenge the new, environment going forward, and make sure first and foremost that we are still steadfast in our faith, our beliefs, our morals, our principles, our ethics. But as long as we're not being asked to challenge those values, then respectfully we can disagree and seek permission to do things our way. And from that point, give it to God and allow His favor to rule, and ultimately His will dictate the outcome. So let's flip back to Daniel and just kind of see where we went, where he went from here. And he rose to favor. So Daniel chapter 1, verse 17. As for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge and intelligence in every branch of literature and wisdom. Daniel even understood all kinds of visions and dreams. That's very important as you get further into the book of Daniel. Then at the end of the days which the king had specified for presenting them, the commander of the officials presented them before Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and out of them all not one was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's personal service. As for every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king consulted them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and conjurers who were in all his realm. And Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus the king. Now, I'm not suggesting that just because we seek permission, God's going to grant us favor and the results are going to be in our favor. But as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said when they were going into the fiery furnace, we believe God will deliver us from this. But even if He doesn't, praise be to God. I'm paraphrasing there, but you get the point. That we put our hope and trust in God, knowing that there's going to be times where things don't go our way, but we're going to trust in Him anyway because He is the ultimate master of our lives. And we owe Him our lives, and we owe it to Him to submit to His will and let His will be done, just like Jesus did when He went to the cross. So I hope and pray that, this content today has helped you in some way. I would love to hear from you. Please drop me some comments, send me an email, menatworkministry@gmail.com. If this was meaningful to you at all, please share it and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Men at Work Ministry. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great week.